Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. How you all doing? Good. Can I ask you to do one thing for me? Can everyone please stand to your feet? Everyone please stand to your feet. It's Friday, it's the end of the week, and I want us to shake us a little bit. I need to get you into that state. Joe's lifted you. I want to lift you another notch if you can. Everyone, get your hands like this for me, if you will, please. Everyone, hands like this. Really easy. All I ask you to do is, when I count to three, you say, yes! And the third time I do it, you say, yes! Just like you scored the best basket or goal or whatever in your life, all right? You with me, guys? Let's amplify this place. And 1, 2, 3.
Yes!
1, 2, 3.
Yes!
1, 2, 3.
Yes!
That was about a 6 out of 10, guys. Like the last one, you got to get off the ground, right? And now we're going to lift the roof off this. We're going to amplify this meeting tonight. Let's do this, all right? On 3. Come on. 1, 2, 3. Yes! 1, 2, 3.
Yes!
1, 2, 3.
Yes!
All right, give yourselves a round of applause. Awesome. All right. Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you, first of all, for being here tonight and for investing in yourselves and your future in 2014. Great to see some of the GDA prefects here. Great to have you guys with us today and many old faces in the room. But tonight is all about you guys. All about lifting you guys, your dreams, your vision, your passions, your goals, whatever they might be, giving you that extra added inspiration for 2014 and beyond even, and beyond. As Joel said, I'm a minister, author, doing a number of things at the moment. But it hasn't always been that way for me in my life. Gaurav would know. Gaurav was in school with me all them years ago. Gaurav would know the old Errol very well. My life was very different. It's worth me saying, it's at the start of my talk today, that when I was at age 11, my parents divorced and I went off the rails, completely off the rails. Got involved in gangs and started selling drugs and smoking weed about 13 years old. Up with my dad. He wasn't around for my teenage years, so I kind of aspired to be like the guys out there, and gangs and drugs and all that kind of different stuff. And age 16, I came home one day. My mum was at home, who was an amazing woman, I must say. And she said, son, listen, enough is enough. And the police have come to the house for you far too often. You're bringing drugs to the house and girls to the house, and I've got your younger siblings to think about now, son. You're going to have to move out, find your own way, and do your own thing. So at 16, I was homeless. Imagine that, 16. Everyone that knew me back then thought I'd end up either dead or in jail or in a mental institution. That's the way my life was heading, literally, and quickly too. I got to age 19, 20, 21, and some things happened in my life that saw my life completely transform. I mean, completely change. Like, I was in our old school recently, Handsworth Grammar, and doing a presentation to my to a couple of year groups there. And my old teachers lined along the side of the hall thinking, how on earth is Errol Lawson standing here teaching our kids how to improve their life and prepare for exam success and what have you? When he was here, he was doing this, saying this, selling that. How is it possible, you know? But lots of things happen, and now, yeah, I'm proud to say that we're in Ghana, in Africa, we're here in the UK too. We're looking to be in 7 countries between now and 2020. So we're growing. We've been in, Joe said 30 schools, and it's 1 school to 30 schools in the last 3 years and growing. So lots of great things are happening. And so from the postcode to the globe, I want to share with you, there's lots I could say about the lessons I've learned and the things that have helped me to turn my life around. But I want to share with you one particular thing that I reckon if you grab this thing today, however old or young you are, this can potentially bring about big transformation in your life too. It's one key thing. It's the power of getting clarity. It's the power of getting clarity about who you are and why you are doing what you do. Getting clarity. About 3 years ago, I mean, I'm 33 now. About 3 years ago, at age 30, things really kind of began to switch on for me. At this time, I was a pastor. I'd run a couple of companies up to that time. We had team promotions and then higher level music, a record label. Marika was one of the artists we were managing back then, you know. And we're doing all kinds of fantastic, good things, but I was still off center, still not living authentically. And what happened was about 3 years ago, I had a conversation with a coach friend of mine. And this guy contacted me through LinkedIn. I didn't know him, never met him in my life. I said, Errol, I've read your profile. I love your story. Can I have a chat with you? Andy Ferguson, his name is. I said, yeah, Scottish guy, full of this Scottish kind of vigor, you know. I said, yeah, sure. He said, listen, I want to help you out, man. I want to help you. How can I help you? I love what you're doing. I said, well, however you like, mate, you know. He said, listen, tell me your story. And so I told him my story and began to unfold where I'd been and what I've been up to, you know, over the last few years and what have you. And he helped me to realize the power of my story and the core, and helped me to understand what my core values were. Who knows what core values are? What do I mean by core values? Anyone?
What you live by, what you believe.
Yeah. The standards you live by, what you believe, yeah? Hands up. Yeah, your belief system. Yeah. Anything else? Any thoughts? What are core values?
What makes you true to yourself?
Yeah, I like that. What makes you true to yourself? Your core values are the things you die for. They're things that you live by. They're guiding principles almost. That if somebody violates one of your core values, you're likely not to be the same person. If I remove that from you, you're not the same person anymore. For example, if you're in a job and you left the job because something happened in that job, it's likely one of your core values was violated. And you said, enough is enough. Or maybe you're in a relationship and someone did something that you said, you know what? That's the end, I'm off. Maybe one of your core values were violated. Now, I didn't understand core values up to this point. I was kind of going through life, living, doing good stuff here and doing good stuff there and trying to make a difference here and trying to make a difference there. But Andy walked me through my story and I recognize this. A couple of things. I'll tell you the three values, the three core ones at the moment. There are lots, but the three core ones are relationships, responsibility, and faith. And here's what we did. We went back through my story and said, okay, when I was relationships first. Key turning points in my life. Number one was relationships. At age 19, I'm standing before a judge in a court of law and he says, Mr. Lawson, 100 hours community service. I get sent off to a place in Handsworth to do my hours community service. 100 hours every Friday. And there's an old Irish guy called John who works at this building. He owns this building on the Soho Road. Now, John says to me, Errol, there's something about you, Errol. Errol, I believe in you, Errol. He looks me square in the eyes, a rough looking, got my hat, my hoodie, and that kind of guy. He's like, Errol, there's something different about you. I said, what do you mean? He said, Errol, you're different than the guys around here. You can make a difference. I said, okay. John gave me the chance to start my own football team called St. Teresa. My team was all gang members at the time. It was crazy. We had fights with other teams, fights amongst our own players. It was mental. He then helped me start my first company called Team Promotions at age 19. Took me around the city and showed me different things. And then we had high-level music after that. But what I realized through John was the power of one relationship. That one person can come into your life and speak into your life and change everything. And the power of one conversation, that actually we don't grow or get any better than the conversations that we either have or submit ourselves to, if you like. So if we're going to grow, we're going to get around some big conversation. And I recognized that through John, relationships meant everything to me. That one relationship meant everything to me. And through that, I said, you know what? I want to be that same kind of person for other people. Relationships is one of my core values, a guiding principle. The second was responsibility. At about age 21 now, after starting high-level music, we had a group of girls who I was working with called Dark Angels, a group of 4 girls I was managing at the time on our label. And a guy called Bernard Taylor came to me and he says, Errol, Bernard was their vocal teacher, and he comes and says, Errol, hey, listen, man, there's something about you. He says again, read this book. This book here, What Makes the Great Great. And like, Bernard, I don't read, Bernard. I'm a read boy, man. We don't read books, you know. I said, Errol, read the book. You'll love it. So I took it. I said, all right, I'll read it. And literally every day, I couldn't put this book down. The stories in there of people who are coming from similar backgrounds to me, who had overcome adversity and obstacles, and the qualities of character that I needed to be successful in life. And I began to read this book. I'd be walking down the road, bumping into lampposts, reading it, on the bus, reading it, on the train. I said one to my dad in another country, my friends in jail. You got to read this book, people. And every book that he referenced in this book, I got those books and I read them. Every book that those authors referenced in their books, I got those books and I read them. And my library now is really extensive, just from this one book. But what it helped me to do was this. decide to myself that, you know what, I'm not going to blame mom or blame dad or blame the police or blame society. I'm going to take responsibility for where my life's at. I decided from that time that if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And I took responsibility for my own personal development. I didn't get A-levels or a degree or anything like that, but I chose to educate myself. And so then responsibility became one of my core values. And the third one was faith. At age 24, I think 25, my sister who sat over there, she came and she says, bro, I found this great church. You'll love it. Come and check it out. I'm like, church? I don't do church, sis. That's not for me. Long story short, and she persisted and I went along and I sat in the back of this church and I made the choice to be a follower of Christ. And I did that and my life, again, changed significantly from the inside out. Now my value systems changed. The habits I had, I was smoking and all that kind of stuff. All that stuff changed in my life. And so I look back with Andy chatting in this conversation and realized that actually faith is one of my core values. And so if you mess with my relationships or you mess with my responsibility, you mess with my faith, you've got to deal with the wrath of Errol Lawson. Because those three things are the things that make me who I am. They guide my decision making. They guide my business choices. They guide my relationship choices. Everything about me goes through the filter of faith, responsibility, and relationships. And there are others too, but those are the three ones I want to focus on today. My core values. Guys, something powerful happens when we identify and understand what our own personal core values are. Not only identify them, but live from them. You see, we all live in a story, right? It's a story we've made, either we've had experiences in our life and things have happened in our life, and those things have made the story we tell ourselves very real. The reality is, though, that story is actually a made-up story. And we get to points in our life where we face challenges and we face obstacles, and those stories are now insufficient to help us move forward. We need a new story because that story gets me stuck. I can't succeed past that. I can't achieve past that because I've told myself all this time that I'm not good enough or that's not for me and we need a new story. But I found that when I identified my core values, they nudged me beyond what I thought at that point was possible. So now we're talking about 7 countries and we're talking about writing more books and we're talking about building bigger teams and impacting more young people all across the world. Because I recognize that actually it's possible. It really is possible. So you've got, there's 10 questions there. I'm giving you just 8 minutes to complete these questions, all right? It's 8 minutes to complete these questions. The memory jogger of values helps you to think about what your core values might be, just to remind you what they might possibly be. here's what I want you to do next. Your top 10 you've written down there, I want you to break it down to 5. I want you to do a playoff in between those goals. So between 1 and 2, imagine like a football tournament kind of thing. Between 1 and 2, which one wins? Right on the side. Between 3 and 4, which one wins? Which one are you most passionate about, most committed to, which one most burns in your heart? Like this one is just a non-negotiable. Playoffs between 1 and 2, between 3 and 4, between 5 and 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. You'll end up with 5 core values, which are your top 5. Everything I do now, I said earlier, is driven by those values. My keynote talk I often deliver, I talk about faith, relationships, and responsibility. My book is those 3 values are in there. All that I do now is driven by those things. My core values and your core values will make you different and differentiate you from anybody else. From every other school speaker, my values differentiate me. From every other leadership coach, my values differentiate me. If you're a company or a brand or whatever you might be, your core values are the things that separate you from the rest. And you stand by, you live from that place. And one way of deepening the power of those values in your life is to create or to tell what I call a value-embedded story. A value-embedded story. A value-embedded story is a story about how that particular value emerged for you as one of your core values. So, for example, I said faith for me, and I tell you a story about faith with my sister. She introduced me to that church, and I went along to that church, and I tell the whole story about it and much more about it. But that's my value-embedded story. It deepens it for me. It becomes real to me. When I share that story, it's powerful because it's mine, and I can tell it authentically and with power. So pick one of your values. From your list of 5 there, pick one that stands out for you. And have a think about when that value emerged for you in your life as a core value. Was there an incident that took place, a circumstance that happened that, if you've written honesty, for example, was it that somebody was really dishonest with you and you recognized that how badly that hurt you and you said, you know what, honesty is a core value for me? What was the incident? What was it that made that thing really emerge to the surface for you as one of your core values? Think of a story around it. The time it happened. Somebody you met, a conversation you had. A lot of companies and organizations have these values on the wall in like a nice cabinet, and these are our core values, but they mean nothing. They don't live by them, they don't espouse them. Some people say, you know what, my values are my family and my kids, but they're never home spending time with them. What makes it really powerful is that when we live from these values and we have them literally written in our heart and we live by them day by day. Does that make sense?